All right. Hello and welcome to this episode where we're going to close up our series on limiting beliefs. And we're going to talk about the belief that things that are simple aren't worth much. And so, obviously, this being a limiting belief. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And before we dive in, just real quick, I have some links down in the notes. And those, leads to a free guide as well as a 2-day intensive workshop that we put together for OCD and anxiety, and will help you learn more about the AAA response, how to put it into practice in your life. So if you want, you can check those out just right there. And then if you are listening to this or watching this and you benefit from the show, we really would appreciate your support by liking and subscribing, as well as leaving a comment or review on iTunes, because it just helps the show. So let's go ahead and tie up this series together today. Um, so we've been talking about limiting beliefs. And we've been talking about how beliefs ultimately dictate your behaviors. And especially when we're talking about that OCD and anxiety loop, it's very important to understand not just the behaviors you're doing that are keeping that wheel going, but also the beliefs underneath those behaviors. And so in this series, we're talking about 4 limiting beliefs that were written about in the book Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. And so the first belief that we talked about, let me just look here, is that we only deserve things through hard work, struggle, sacrifice, and effort. Second belief is that suffering is beneficial and good for us. Third is that we don't get anything from nothing. And fourth is that things that are simple aren't worth much. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, when we're talking about beliefs, what we're talking about here is really stories that we operate from. And, it's so funny, that a lot of times when it comes to how we value things, we value them based on things that don't necessarily communicate their actual value, right? Because, if you, let's just say, let's just take the example of cars, right? There's a $20,000 Honda Civic, right? Which is very reliable car, gets you to point A to point B, no problem, right? Does the functionality. And then you have something like let's say a Rolls Royce, or even a high end Mercedes Benz, right? Now, when you look at the actual car itself, it's like, yeah, there might be nicer features, maybe some things are better, well made, but the functionality of driving from one place to the next, the cars are going to serve very similar functionalities, right? So when we're talking about the value of something, and yes, there is obviously, like, there's other aspects of the value of a Mercedes, whether it's like a social class value and stuff like that. But I mean, the point is that when we value something, it's not just a simple monetary exchange, right? And more importantly, just because something is worth a lot of money, or someone pays a lot of money for something, doesn't really mean it's quote unquote valuable. And oftentimes, the simplest things in life, or the best pieces of advice, are, virtually free. And one of the things that we mistake is that something needs to be a lot of money to be worth a lot. And that's something like, I mean, this podcast is a good example. This podcast is free, right? And I choose not to have advertisements on the podcast, right? I have had many offers for people to advertise on the show, and I won't do it. And the reason is because I don't want to dilute the show for money, right? I don't want to just take on an ad about something that's totally not helpful or not related, just so I could potentially make money on the show, or have an extra income stream from the show. The thing about but I mean, the show is free, but I really do try to pack as much value as I can in the show, right? And it's a rather simple it's a simple show. I mean, when this started, right? It was just like I was thinking, I was just like, I want to just start talking about concepts that I wish I would have known about when I was really stuck in the OCD and anxiety loop. And sure, do I have my book and then my 12-week program and coaching program, yeah, and sure, and there is different ways to work with me that do cost money, and I get that. That's part of just how we've structured things, right? But the thing is that like something simple oftentimes loses its appeal because it seems too simple to be valuable, you know and and that's a big belief that we bring into sometimes this process, is that this sounds too simple, right? So this can't help me. So we talk about something like exposure response prevention, we talk about the AAA response, we talk about methods and techniques that we use to break out of the loop, especially when focusing on behavioral modification. And it's like, when something sounds simple, especially with OCD and anxiety, our minds tend to get to tend to work against us, because it's like they think, well, there's no way it could be that simple or that easy, and then they just discredit the solution altogether, right? But oftentimes the simplest approach is the best approach. Oftentimes, if you can't explain something to a third grader, you really don't understand it. Like, complexity just brings chaos, you know and complexity doesn't mean more valuable. I mean, like, and the thing is that if you were looking at two, let's say, two programs, and one promised to teach you 50 different skills, to get this certain result, and then one promised, say, I'm going to teach you this one result to get you this thing, and then this one charged $50,000 and this one charged 500. It's like, which one would you really look at? And the illusion is because there's more and this costs more, that this must be more valuable. But oftentimes it's taking a very simple and direct approach that actually produces the best results. And so, looking at things in your life, right? Like, yeah, I mean, most people don't realize that a book can really change your life. And it sounds too simple, right? Our books are usually like, $10 or less. And what most people don't realize about books is, generally, people that have written books are taking probably at minimum 10 years of their life and condensing it to something that you can consume in a few hours. Meaning, you can save those 10 years and to learn the lessons the way that that person learned them, and that person condenses it for you in that time. The reason books are so valuable are not the pages that they're written on, or the paper. It's the condensed time that the author takes to take this big lesson that they learned and condense it into a few short hours of your life, so you can learn that lesson without having to invest the time. That's the reason that books are so valuable, especially when it comes to, like, books. I mean, really, books on anything, but I mean, like, not really talking about fictional stories and stuff, but I mean, that same thing. It's like, when you're talking about, like, self-help books or whatever, the reason they're so valuable is it sounds simple, right? It's just like you're taking up these lessons, but the reason that they're so valuable is because of the time condensed application of it. And this is just something to bring into your life, and starting to challenge, like, hey, what do I just overlook because I think this is too simple, or I think this needs to be more complicated, or whatever it is. And just looking at wherever you bring this particular belief in your life is important, because as you start to realize that, you can start to challenge it, and start to have your eyes open up to maybe the simple approach might actually be helpful. Maybe this simple route might actually be the thing that can help me. And even though it seems simple, it doesn't mean that it's not worthy of my time or energy or investment, right? And that the simplicity of it might actually be the worth that I'm not even seeing. So just some food for thought. And again, this is going to conclude our series on limiting beliefs. I mean, we could talk about a multitude of beliefs, but I wanted to just kind of cover the 4 from Dr. Hawkins in the book Letting Go, which again is a great book, and I recommend as well. So, with that said, we're going to be opening up a new series starting up here, and so I'm excited for that. And with that said, I wish you guys a great week as always, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care.